Hermes says this is a mental universe. Paul says we should renew our lives with our minds, and I'm a mental health therapist. I work with people all the time on their mental health, largely using our minds. Well, today there was a study that came out that says that antidepressants do not make people any happier, a major study claims. Now here's the major study. They looked at 17.5 million people over 10 years. It's a big study. They looked at people who were taking medicines for depression. They were taking it people that were in therapy for depression. What they found over a 10-year period of time is that people weren't any happier having used antidepressants. The mere seeking of treatment was enough. Everybody got a little better, but the antidepressants didn't seem to have much of an effect, okay? So we're going to talk about why that is coming from a spiritual perspective. The fact is, much of the Bible and a lot of spiritual teachings are about mental activity, consciousness activity, if you will. And I'm going to give you one of my favorites. I've referenced this before, but I want to put it in a mental health context, okay? Jesus in Luke 12:47 and 12:48 says, "When you know your master's will and you don't make ready according to his will, you will receive a severe beating. If you don't know his will and you do what deserves a beating, your beating will be less severe. For those to whom much has been given, much is expected." Now, I'm going to suggest that's a consciousness thing, and it's a mental thing, mental activity. If you get a high motor up here and you have the ability and you understand what you're supposed to be doing and you don't do it, you get a severe beating. I like to compare it to this high jump here, okay? If you have the ability to clear, say, 6 foot on the high jump and you don't do it, you're going to clang your head on the bar, right? And that's going to hurt, and it's going to feel like a severe beating. But if you manage to get over 6 foot, you clear the bar, you're going to feel good because you did what you needed to do. People, especially spiritual people who have the ability to do it, that don't clear their spiritual bar, they feel depressed. There's a gap between what they're capable of and what they're experiencing, and that is depression. You're going to try to medicate that? That's not going to work. At best, it would be temporary. The medicines that they use for antidepressants, the SSRIs in particular, are just trying to boost your brain's natural serotonin. Serotonin is produced naturally in your brain when you find things meaningful. We're depressed when we think things aren't meaningful, especially the bad things that happen to us. But if we recognize that when bad things happen, there's value in them, we boost our own serotonin production and we're less depressed. The problem is, especially in American society, it's hard to buy into that when everybody's complaining about everything all the time, right? And then we don't produce serotonin. But our adversities are good for us, because it gives us the opportunity to raise the bar, or at least raise ourselves above the bar, what I call the mental health bar. If you clear that bar inside yourself, you're no longer depressed. Now, some people have a lower bar, and they clear that bar easily. Maybe you might be able to step right over that bar, okay? Well, that's not to those whom much has been given. They're not given much. Jesus in Luke 12:47, there are some people who do what deserves a beating, don't feel a beating, or they get less of a beating because the bar is lower. See, spiritual people, and we're in Easter week, spiritual people have to experience a crucifixion of sorts. We have to learn how to love our enemies. You know, we have to practice forgiveness and patience and virtues in general. We have to do that. And when things get tough, we don't get to give that up. We have to raise the bar, and we have to clear the bar that's given to us. Then we have to do things like loving another as ourselves. We actually have to teach this to others. And we have to clear our bar, but then help others over the bar. And when that doesn't work, we still feel like we have a severe beating, okay? It's on each one of us individually to clear the bar that was set for us. To those who much has been given, much is expected means you might have a higher bar. Your bar requires something of a crucifixion of yourself, that's the ego inside yourself, a resurrection of the spirit within, a loving of an enemy, a trusting in an expectation that the world is actually fair. It's a world that's a spiritual place, not a physical place, and living in accordance to that is how we clear that bar. When you clear your bar, you produce more serotonin. When you produce more serotonin, you're not depressed. This is why antidepressants don't work so well. Antidepressants are trying to magnify the serotonin that's already in your system. And if we're not finding life meaningful, we're not going to produce serotonin, and there's not going to be much to magnify. But if we practice spiritual, if we work on things spiritually, we'll produce the serotonin, we will clear the bar, and depression fades away.